You're listening to Sensitive Changemakers. This podcast is created for highly sensitive leaders and is designed to support you to embrace your strengths and gifts so you can feel more confident in your own mind and body and live a life with intention, purpose, and more importantly, joy. I'm your host, Kate Carter, a fellow HSP who has a BA Honours degree in education, is a fully trained and qualified professional coach and NLP practitioner, and has over 17 years of teaching and over 3 years of coaching experience supporting highly sensitive people. I believe that you can do anything you want to in this life, but that sometimes the path forward becomes muddy with self-doubt and fear of failure. It's my mission to help sensitive thought leaders peel away the self-doubt and stories holding them back, for them to see their own beauty and strength so they can increase self-confidence and self-trust through thought and embodiment work and see their path clearly and move forward confidently, living their life with intention and purpose. I would love for you to come and join us. Hello and welcome to Sensitive Changemakers. As always, I hope this episode finds you well. Today's episode hopefully is going to be a short but really powerful episode as I invite you in to one of my client sessions and how I supported this particular individual in reducing her anxiety overall. Now, one of the things I think is really important to preface this with is when I work with clients, every single one of them is different. And I support that individual in creating their unique toolkit. Yes, there are specific processes that I go through. So my specific process is we look at the thought patterns, we look at emotions, we look at body. So this to me helps us holistically in permanently shifting anxiety. This is what I've learned through my training. It's what I've learned personally for me as somebody who was incredibly anxious. Talking therapy is great, but it's only part of the picture. We really do need to have that mind-body connection. We really do need to have those somatic processes, those body processes that really support us in shifting it completely. Because what I know to be true is our body remembers and holds anxiety, stress, overwhelm, just as much as our brain does in that memory part of it. So we really do need to work with the body as well. So this particular client, I'm going to keep her identity completely anonymous, had some OCD behaviors. There was some anxiety around driving and just some intrusive thoughts. And so what we did to start off with is we just talked it out. And this is how I start with each of my clients, just because it normally allows me to meet them where they're at. It's something they're used to doing. It feels like it's not too scary a jump into the unknown, and it enables me to get to know them really well. And I think one of the things I'm really good at, and that I'm just getting better and better the more that I do this, is really understanding what's not being said or what is being said underneath the words, if that makes sense. So really reflecting that back to them, and that in itself can create just a new awareness around something that maybe they didn't see before. And that allows us to shift things. Sometimes it allows us to put things into place. It allows just for a deeper understanding of what's going on. So I do just stick with the present and the future. So where they are currently and where they want to move to, how they would like to feel in the future, etc. I don't dig too much in the past. I may ask, where they were. If they want to, I always check that they want to, but I may ask, what's been going on in the past for you? What have you tried before? Those types of things. What I don't like to do is really dig too much into any painful experiences in the past, because the way that I've been trained and the way that I think works really well is we can use what's happening now in the present moment, because all of your experiences, all of your situations that you've been through are affecting the person that you are today. So my way that I view this is we can look at the person you are today to get a good understanding of what's been happening previously anyway, without digging into those really kind of painful experiences for a lot of people. So first of all, let's look at the OCD behaviors. So this is behavior. This is about thought patterns affecting behavior. And so a really easy analogy that I can use here, or an example that I can use here, one that didn't affect this lady, but just one that you can hopefully relate to, is, did I lock the front door? You know, when you're leaving to go out somewhere, did I lock the front door? And for most of us, that's just it. And we'll go, yeah, I did, and then go on our way. For some of us, we'll go back and check. That is like a mini OCD tendency. It's not a big one, but it kind of is a tendency, it's there. And so one of the things that we really worked with this particular client in is how we can replace these less helpful behaviors with more helpful behaviors. So how can we just replace some of those? And again, there were two parts to this. We looked at the behavior itself, but we also looked at the thoughts and, you know, what those behaviors meant. What were they doing? What did they give her? And in this case, it created an element of safety. Even though it made her miserable, there was an element of creating safety here, which is most of what our body and brain is trying to do for us most of the time. So in this particular situation, we created some new behaviors that she could do, and one of them is to actually just say it out loud as you're doing it. So the example of the front door, you would say, as you're locking the door, I am locking the door now. So that when you walked away and you got into the car and you think, did I lock the front door? You can say, yeah, I did, because I remember saying out loud. Just actually verbalizing it can be something that's really supportive. One of the other things that we did was mentally take photos of things as she was doing them. So again, she didn't feel the need to go back and check. And then obviously we looked at the thought patterns behind those, what was really going on, and how could we create safety in a different way? Because what we'd found with this particular client was that it had become a habit. It was something that the habit itself felt safe. And so looking at different ways that she could feel safe without using and without falling back on those OCD patterns, those OCD habits. And so that was the one thing that we looked at here. And again, understanding where her current thought processes were so that we could then introduce new, more supportive, helpful thought patterns. And then we went a step further, and this is the bit that I think often gets missed out, is how that affects the body and the emotions. And so the body here, what we talked about was, what do you need in those particular situations to feel safe? How does that safety feel in the body? What does it feel like when you don't feel safe? So really getting to understand what's going on at a body level here. And we introduced some different unique tools for her to support her in feeling safe. One of those we found was literally giving herself a bodily hug. And again, this sounds, I know, strange to a lot of people who haven't done it, but it is a way of self-regulating and really supporting our body in feeling safe. So that was one of the things that we did there. We also found that in a couple of situations, some of these thought patterns would lead to some intrusive thoughts, which would lead to her having a bit of a stomach ache and feeling a bit sick. And so again, we talked about how we could use the body here rather than the mind. So how we could feel it out. How could we move this through the body? Because what was happening was she was having these intrusive thoughts and then she was trying to distract herself. And distraction is a really natural way that a lot of us cope with this. We distract ourselves. So something's happened that feels a bit unpleasant. So we'll just go and do. And I get it. And it can be, depending on where you are and how severe your anxiety is, it can be something that feels supportive in the initial start. But actually, what we really need to do here is learn how to sit with something. Because the more we learn to accept and sit with it, the quicker it can pass. And so we played around with different tools and techniques that she can use here to actually sit this through. And one of the ones, as I was saying before, was kind of physically giving herself a hug as she was feeling these feelings. So this was more about the emotion. It was more about the body. How could she sit with it? We used the analogy of the ice cube, of, you know, having that ice cube in your hand and knowing that to start off with, it stings. But if you just sit with that ice cube over time, it will melt and then there'll be nothing there and you'll be okay. And it was that kind of idea, sitting with it, knowing that she was safe, knowing that it was okay, knowing that these emotions are just emotions. So naming some of the emotions helped here as well. And so really just creating some body emotional toolkits or tools and techniques here to support her really, really worked well. Um, and that's kind of where we worked with this individual client. So we looked at the thoughts, we looked at the emotions, we looked at the body. And obviously, yes, they all affect each other. And sometimes we would work from the thought to the emotion to the body. And sometimes we would work the other way around, body, emotion, thought, just so that she could get a clear idea of what was going on for her. But also, she had very much a say in what she found most supportive. And this is where we talk about having that unique toolkit. It wasn't something I was saying, right, this is what you've got to do. It was me guiding her and saying, right, let's look at this. This is what I'm hearing is happening. What would be the most helpful thing for you to include here? What would sometimes it's what's the most important, the most helpful thought here could be for you. And she would come up with a mantra or something that would support her in that. Sometimes it was what was the most helpful action you could take here. And we would talk about different behaviors that she could include. Sometimes it would be, what do you need physically at that moment? And again, that would be like a body response. And so it was very much guided by her and what felt best for her. And at the end of it, she has now got this unique toolkit that she can use at any point, because the whole point for me is that you shouldn't be having months and months and months or years and years and years of therapy. You should be in a situation where, I mean, I had 12 sessions with this individual. And by the end of those 12 sessions, she had her unique toolkit that we had trialed, that we had evaluated, that we had tweaked, that felt really good for her, that was working. And we got to the stage where she could do that on her own. She didn't need me anymore. She understood herself. She hadn't finished the journey. She was still on her journey, but she could do the rest of the journey on her own. So her anxiety had reduced. Her driving anxiety had reduced. OCD behaviors had all but disappeared. So she was on the way on her own. And that to me is a huge success. And I did check in with her, and she was saying that she feels so much more equipped to be able to deal with how she was feeling than ever before. So much to the degree that her family and friends had noticed how much more relaxed she was, how much happier she was doing different things that used to cause a lot of anxiety for her. So just having that unique toolkit for her and empowering her to know that she could do that herself, that she really did have everything she needed inside of herself, really supported her in making those changes and those shifts. And for some of us, they're not huge shifts to be made. They are things that we need to consistently implement, and that sometimes can be the difficult part. It's not necessarily that they're big jumps, it's that they are small shifts, but they have to be consistently implemented for it to stick. And I'm just going to say it one more time, because again, I think it gets missed out. The piece about the body is so important. Like I said, we hold things in our body just as much as in our memory. And if we're not working with the body, if we're suppressing, if we're pushing things down, if we're pushing emotions away, if we're distracting ourselves by doing rather than allowing ourselves to feel and sit with those things, we're never really going to clear anxiety or stress or overwhelm permanently, because our body won't let us, because it's saying, look, you haven't processed this bodily yet. It's still here. It's still within the body. And so that's such an important part of what I do with clients. We really do work through the thought patterns, the emotions, and the body. And I think to get that as a whole picture is so, so supportive. So if you want to look at what your unique toolkit is, I'm going to be introducing a free masterclass starting the 12th of August, and it's going to be over 3 days to look at the individual parts of this. So we're going to be looking at emotions and body. That's our first day. So that body, really, really important. How we listen to our emotions, how we listen to our body, opening up that communication way again with our body. So that's going to be day 1. Day 2 is our thought processes, how we can start to rewire the brain, how we can replace less helpful thought processes or thoughts with more helpful thoughts, and how we can actually shift the way that we talk to ourselves, because that in effect will have an impact on our emotions, behaviors, and body. And then finally, the 3rd day, we're going to look at identity specifically. And I've included this one as kind of an extra because you can do all of the thought work, all of the body work. But if you still identify as an anxious person, if you still identify as a worrier, then you're going to kind of self-sabotage. All of the work that you're doing is not going to stick. It's not going to be permanent because you don't see yourself as free. You don't see yourself as not an anxious person. And so we really kind of need to work with the identity piece here. So we'll be bringing in examples from James Clear when he talks about atomic habits. We'll be talking about the happiness advantage by Sean Aker. We'll be talking about Carol Dweck and mindset, just to bring in some really well researched information around how you can actually permanently shift your identity, your thought processes, etc. So we're going to be looking at that. The whole idea here is I will be supporting you in creating your own unique toolkit. So what I do with clients in sessions all of the time. So if this is something you're interested in, I'm going to put the link in the show notes. It would be amazing to have you there. And as a thank you, there will be the opportunity to win a one-to-one session with me where we can actually look at this deeper and really support you in clarifying what your unique toolkit is for you. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to send you so much love, and I will be back next week for another episode. See you soon, guys. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. If you have any takeaways or any questions, please do reach out to me either through Instagram, LinkedIn, or Facebook at Kate Carter Coaching, or you can email me at kate@katecarter.co.uk. I always love to hear your feedback and the things that you have taken from the podcast. If you know of any other highly sensitive people, then please do share this so that I can reach more and support more highly sensitive people to embrace their strengths and gifts. As a thank you, I will pick a winner every month for a free 50-minute coaching session with me. Thank you so, so much.